I think my stalker, or else she'll get mad at me. Hi. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I want to thank everybody who's come by and asked questions, whether they be about moving overseas or personal. I did have a personal question, so today I'm going to do a little story time and talk about my life and, some of the things I went through and how I got where I am today. I was born in 1977 in Long Beach, California. My father was an alcoholic, drug addicted abuser who physically abused my mother. I already had an older sister. But when I was 5 years old, my parents divorced. And my mom instantly moved on to another man who was also an abuser. As I got older, that abuse kind of made me jaded towards him as well as my father. My father didn't really stay connected to us. When my parents got divorced, he had visitation, but most of the time he just wouldn't even show up. No plan ahead of time to not show up. We'd be waiting for him and he just would never show up. In my early teens, it was becoming clear to me that he wasn't that involved. He would call and try to wish me a happy birthday. Like my birthday wasn't anywhere near that time. He wasn't sure how old I was, that kind of thing. And when I was 17 years old, he died. I believe he had a heart attack, most likely due to cocaine abuse. It wasn't something I was really concerned with. I came home from school. My mom said, "Hey, your dad died." And I was just like, bummer. I didn't really know him. He wasn't like my father. He was just like some dude that I knew a little bit about. So there was no emotional attachment, but I did start drinking myself, and I kind of came to this idea that I would turn out just like him. I grew to a young man who believed that the men in my family were just broken. My dad died when he was 54, so on the younger side, I just assumed I was going to die on the younger end of life and, didn't really care about my life too much. Going back further, my grandfather, my dad's dad, he also died on the younger side. The story goes, and I'm not 100% sure how accurate it is, but the story goes is he was abusive to my grandmother. At one point, he whacked her on the head with a telephone, back then an old heavy telephone, and she passed out. But later that day, she came to. She went down to the grocery store to pick some things up, and she dropped dead in the grocery store from a brain bleed or a hemorrhage or something of that nature. So my grandmother wasn't around anymore when I was born, and she wasn't around for most of my dad's life, as far as I know. My grandfather, I believe, did some jail time. I'm not 100% sure, but eventually he got drunk. He fell down a flight of stairs, and he had to go to the hospital where he died of post-surgical pneumonia. That's what I've been told. So I'm just assuming the men in my family line are just shitbags, right? My grandfather, my dad, why not me? Through most of my 20s, I just assumed I was going to die a shitbag, alcoholic. So I drank and I partied and I did stupid things and I didn't really look out for myself. I eventually did some family ancestry where I got back to the 1650s of my mom's side of the family, but I never got past my dad's dad. I was a baby when he died, so I didn't know anything about him personally, never got to talk to him, and my dad never said anything about his family. That was where the story of my dad's side of the family ended. Eventually, my aunt, my dad's sister, did some digging of her own because my grandfather never talked about his family to them either. There was my dad, my aunt, and my dad had another brother who died at some point. I'm not entirely sure about his story either, but he didn't tell his children anything about their families. So my aunt did some digging of her own, and she finally found out that my grandfather was from a town in Arkansas and that his family had continued to live there and were a prominent, well-liked family. They owned the general store in town, and the general store eventually had been purchased and turned into a restaurant. And she actually went to the town and visited the restaurant, and there's still our last name tiled into the floor when you walk into the restaurant, which is where you would have walked into the general store. It turned out that everybody in that town knew our family, and they were well liked, they were well regarded, and they had a big plot in the cemetery where they'd been buried, and it was just my grandfather who was the black sheep of that family. He didn't like being around his family in any way, so he moved to California and never associated with his family again, never told his children anything about his family, and just separated himself. So it was in that moment that I realized that it wasn't just my family line that was a series of broken people. It was just my grandfather that was broken. He was the odd man out in a family of good people, and he had affected my father, who had in turn affected me, and I could actually break that cycle. I could actually refuse to be a shitbag and continue on this cycle of shitbag people and turn my life around and make my family line good again. So I eventually met who's my wife now. We got married. I stopped drinking, and I really worked hard to try to become a better person. I started working in construction. One good thing I might have inherited from my dad was my ability to understand residential construction. I'm told that my father was a very good builder. He spent his life as a painting contractor, but he had put a whole second floor on the first house I ever lived in that we moved out of when I was 6 months old. So I don't remember anything about it, but he and my mom's dad and my uncle apparently helped put a whole second story on the house we lived in then. And he did a lot of building when he was younger. And it was just something he understood. And I got into construction as a carpenter, and all that stuff just kind of easily made sense to me. So I think on some level, maybe I inherited something good from my dad, but otherwise I pushed everything about him away and tried to do the opposite, be the opposite person. I worked hard to try to support my family. When we started having kids, that really turned my life around even faster. You know, I think there's a couple things that can happen when you come from a family of abuse where you have one or both shitty parents. You can either follow in their footsteps because you don't know any different, or it can kind of make you hyper focus on not turning out the same way. And fortunately, I believe I ended up the latter, and I really didn't want to be the shitty parent that I knew. And it really made me, and I think my wife, it really made us focus on being better parents than we might have had. So that's really the story of where I came from and how I got to where I am now. Obviously, I'm not in construction anymore. I started doing a blog many years ago, just writing stories about terrible people. And it really stemmed from my interest in psychology, my interest in what makes people do things the way they did, especially starting my first season of This Is Monsters, being filicide, parents killing their own children. I have a fascination with, how parents can turn into shitty parents. My grandfather was a shitty parent, but it doesn't sound like he had shitty parents. So where did he get that from? It's always been a fascination of mine, the psychological aspect of that kind of thing. I was in construction management while I started the blog, which eventually turned into a podcast. I thought of just having the podcast on YouTube in audio form. The first season of my podcast, if you watch on YouTube, there's not images and stuff. I just put the podcast on YouTube and have like a waveform kind of playing in the background visually. And then that turned into adding images and stuff. And really, the pandemic helped a little bit because I was able to, we were out of work for a while. I was still getting paid salary. So I was able to kind of push more content onto my YouTube channel and take it to where it is now, where I now own my own business that focuses on creating online content in the form of podcasts and YouTube channels. And I've got some books that I'm working on and some music I'm working on. So there's going to be more online content coming in the future. If you have any other personal questions for me, you can leave them in the comments and I'll try to do another video. I'll answer them in the comments as well. I've been shopping for a webcam so I could do some sort of live streaming event where you can leave comments and I can answer them right away. Otherwise, keep coming back. I've got more information about moving to the Netherlands coming up. There are so many details to go over, and there's a ton to talk about there. So thanks again for coming by. If you enjoy hearing more about me, hit the subscribe button, and you can continue on this journey with me. Thanks again. Be safe.